You ever give someone everything you have, your time, your heart, your dreams, and then watch it all crumble right before your eyes? Imagine the kind of betrayal that cuts deeper than words, a betrayal not just by a lover, but by the person you trusted most. The person you called your best friend. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's a raw, emotional journey into trust shattered, love turned cold, and the dark twists that follow when two people you loved most turn against you in the cruelest way possible. Right now, you're probably wondering, how did it come to this? Why would someone do this to the person who gave them everything? I promise, by the time you watch through to the end, you're going to understand the shocking truth behind this twisted love triangle, and it will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about loyalty and betrayal. You see, this isn't just a tale of love lost. It's about what happens when the lines between friendship and romance blur, when loyalty breaks, and the people you hold closest become the ones who hurt you most. You might be sitting there thinking, I've had my heart broken before, or I know what it's like to be betrayed. But this story? It's on another level. Because it's not just a breakup, it's a deep psychological wound inflicted by the very people you trusted to stand by your side through thick and thin. This story will pull you into a world of secrets, lies, and emotional chaos where every moment is charged with tension and every decision changes the course of lives forever. So I'm asking you to stay with me, not just for the drama, but because this story holds a mirror to all of us, reminding us how fragile trust really is and how devastating it can be when that trust is betrayed. Let me introduce you to the heart of this story, her. She was the kind of woman who gave without hesitation. From the moment they met, she believed in love like it was a sacred vow, a promise she would hold on to no matter what. She poured her soul into the relationship, standing by him during his toughest moments, celebrating his wins, and even sacrificing her own dreams to support theirs. She wasn't perfect, but her love was genuine and fierce. Then there's him, the man who seemed like a dream at first. Charismatic, charming, and attentive. He made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. But beneath that charm was something darker, something she never saw coming. And finally, there's the best friend, the one she trusted most, the one who knew every secret, every fear, every hope she ever had. They laughed together, cried together, made plans together, until everything changed. Suddenly, the lines between friendship and betrayal were crossed in the most painful way imaginable. The tension between these three builds slowly but surely, setting the stage for a heartbreak so intense it feels like the world itself has shifted beneath their feet. And the question you need answered, why did he leave her for her best friend? What caused the ultimate betrayal that shattered her world? You might think the answer is simple jealousy or some cliché love triangle drama, but trust me, it's much more complicated and much darker than that. This story dives deep into the tangled emotions, the hidden motives, and the secrets nobody wanted to admit out loud. It's a story about love, loss, and the messy human truths that come with both. So, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, or if you want to understand the complicated emotions that drive people to hurt those closest to them, then you are in the right place. Stay with me through this story, because I'm going to take you inside the lives of these three people to reveal what really happened, what was left unsaid, and why the scars they left behind run so deep. By the time you reach the end, you'll see why this story isn't just about heartbreak. It's about survival, resilience, and the fight to reclaim your life after everything falls apart. But just when you think you're ready for the answers, when you think you've figured out who did what and why, something unexpected happens, something that changes everything you thought you knew about this heartbreaking tale. So don't click away yet, because the moment that turns everything upside down is coming up next, and it's a twist you won't see coming. The real story is just beginning. In the weeks leading up to the moment everything fell apart, she had been trying to hold on, desperately trying to keep the pieces of her life from slipping through her fingers. Things weren't perfect, far from it, but she believed they could work through the cracks. She had been juggling so much, a demanding job that left her exhausted, late nights spent texting him, trying to keep their connection alive despite the distance growing between them. Her best friend was the one person she leaned on most during this time, the one who listened when she spilled her worries about their relationship, the one who offered a shoulder when she felt overwhelmed. They talked about everything, from dreams about the future to doubts she could barely admit to herself. On the surface, everything seemed like a typical friendship, but as the days went by, small things started to feel off, little moments that didn't add up. You might think it was just paranoia or stress clouding her judgment, but sometimes your gut knows what your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Her boyfriend, the man she thought she knew inside and out, had been acting strangely too. Phone calls that were suddenly cut short, texts that went unanswered for hours, even days. There were excuses, of course, work stress, family problems, things she wanted to believe because she loved him so much. But behind those excuses lurked shadows of something she wasn't ready to face. Rumors started swirling quietly among their circle of friends, whispers she tried to dismiss, but couldn't completely ignore. Was there someone else? Was this just a case of growing apart, or something darker? You'll see how the cracks in their relationship started small but widened fast, pulling her into a storm she never saw coming. And then there was the best friend, her confidant, her sister in everything but blood. The person who knew where every emotional wound was hidden, the person who had been there during the darkest nights and the brightest days. Yet, somewhere along the way, the lines between friendship and something else began to blur. Was it jealousy? A secret attraction? Or maybe something more calculated, a betrayal that started as a simple moment of weakness and spiraled out of control? The truth is tangled, and just when you think you can guess who played what part, new details emerge that make you question everything. You'll hear about late-night texts that don't quite add up, unexplained meetings, and subtle but telling changes in behavior that didn't fit the story she was being told. After the diagnosis, after the abandonment, she went silent, at least outwardly. To her coworkers, she seemed to power through, a little quieter than usual, but still reliable, still sharp. But privately, she was rebuilding herself from the inside out. The nights alone became her sanctuary. She journaled. She meditated. She even started therapy, something she never thought she'd need. But the biggest shift? Emily started paying attention, not just to herself, but to people. Their patterns, their words, the gaps between what they said and what they actually did. She became hyper-aware of betrayal, not just in romance, but in friendships, in her workplace, even in her family. And slowly, she started piecing together that this wasn't just about Andrew. This was about trust and how fragile it really was. Her sickness wasn't just physical, it peeled back layers. It revealed who truly showed up and who just talked a good game. Some of her closest friends vanished too. Not as dramatically as Andrew, but quietly. Texts left on read, invitations that never came, excuses stacked on top of each other until the message was clear. Only a few people stayed. Her younger brother Jordan, who drove 3 hours just to sit beside her during chemo, her supervisor, Ms. Daniels, who adjusted Emily's shifts so she wouldn't burn out, and Marcus, a quiet, observant ER nurse who had worked with Emily for years but only started getting close when she was at her lowest. Some said Marcus had a thing for her. Others claimed he was just protective. But no one could quite figure him out, and Emily, though grateful for his friendship, always kept a slight distance. There was something about Marcus that didn't quite sit right. Maybe it was his timing, maybe it was how he always knew a little too much. As for Andrew, his disappearance didn't go unnoticed in their social circle. Rumors started to swirl. Some claimed he left her for someone else, a woman he had met at his job, maybe a coworker from the sales department. Others believed he couldn't handle the emotional toll and simply cracked under pressure. A few more sinister whispers suggested Andrew had secrets of his own, things Emily never knew. Hidden debts. Late-night disappearances even before her diagnosis. One person even mentioned seeing Andrew arguing with a stranger outside a bar 2 weeks before he left. Nobody could confirm it, but the seed was planted. And Emily, well, she heard it all, filed it away, and said nothing. She didn't need revenge. She wanted peace. But peace, it seemed, had a strange way of finding her right when she was least expecting it. The hospital wasn't just a place for recovery, it was a revolving door of stories. And every shift brought new faces, new tragedies, new dramas. But Emily had grown increasingly sharp at sensing when something wasn't quite right. She noticed how Andrew didn't seem surprised to be there, not in the way most car accident patients were. He wasn't shaken or emotional. He wasn't asking about the other driver or worried about what happened next. It was like he was used to chaos.
Too used to it.
And then there was the way he scanned the room, the way he looked at the door every time it opened, like he was expecting someone. Or avoiding someone. Emily noted it all. She didn't say much. Just observed. Like a detective in plain sight. The truth was, Andrew hadn't just been careless with her heart. He had been living a double life long before she got sick. The cracks had been there, late nights blamed on work meetings, financial inconsistencies, vague stories that didn't add up. Emily had been too trusting back then, too busy keeping everyone else afloat to realize she was drowning in deception. But now, with every beep of the heart monitor and every flicker of fluorescent light in that hospital room, she was beginning to piece together something much bigger than heartbreak. Andrew wasn't just a coward. He was hiding something. And it was only a matter of time before the truth caught up with him. But just as Emily began to feel control returning to her fingertips, something happened that made her stomach drop. She went to input Andrew's chart into the system and noticed a restricted note attached to his file. Normally, these were only applied to high-risk cases or patients with flagged security concerns. She clicked, but access was denied. Her clearance level wasn't high enough. That alone raised red flags. She wasn't just any nurse. She had senior-level access. What could Andrew possibly be involved in that was being kept locked down even from her? She decided not to push it. Not yet. Instead, she kept playing the role professional, distant, calm. But inside, the questions were multiplying. Had Andrew gotten into something criminal? Was that car accident really an accident? And why had he landed in her hospital, of all places, when he had supposedly moved to another city entirely? She thought about Marcus again, how he always seemed to pop up when something was off. Just last week, he had warned her to be careful with patients she had personal ties to. Had he known Andrew was coming in? Had he arranged it? Or was that just coincidence? But then there was the stranger. A man Emily had noticed lingering near the waiting area 2 nights in a row. Tall, hoodie pulled up, never checking in, just watching. She'd assumed he was just another worried relative until she saw him talking to a security guard in hushed tones. When she approached, he disappeared. Now, Emily's instincts were kicking into high gear. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. It wasn't just about Andrew ghosting her when she got sick. Something was wrong. Something bigger. Something darker. And she was right in the middle of it, whether she wanted to be or not. And just as she started to connect the dots, as she began to wonder if Andrew's presence in that hospital room was part of a bigger plan, he said something that made her blood run cold. He didn't look at her. He didn't raise his voice. He just whispered it, soft, deliberate, like a warning wrapped in guilt. I didn't mean for you to get dragged into this. Emily barely slept that night. Her thoughts churned with questions she couldn't shake. Andrew's cryptic words clung to her like a chill she couldn't warm from. She had dealt with countless traumas in her years as a nurse. Code blues, frantic ER rushes, patients who came in smiling and never made it out. But this felt different. Personal. Deliberate. She got up earlier than usual and returned to the hospital before sunrise, hoping the stillness of morning would offer clarity. But the silence only deepened the mystery. When she logged into the system to take another look at Andrew's restricted file, it was gone. Not restricted. Not hidden. Just gone. No trace of his admission. No vitals, no notes, no patient ID. It was as if Andrew Carter had never been admitted to the hospital at all. Emily's pulse quickened. She knew she hadn't imagined it. The chart, the quiet dread in Andrew's voice, it had all been real. She checked the physical logbook, hoping for a nurse's signature, a timestamp, anything. Nothing. Even the bed he had been in last night now housed a new patient, and the staff acted like it had never been occupied. She asked around casually, trying not to raise alarms, but everyone gave her the same blank look. Carter? Are you sure he was on this floor? Someone suggested maybe she was mistaking him for a transfer. Another nurse joked that she needed a nap. Emily laughed it off, but her chest tightened. Something was very, very wrong. And she was being gaslit in plain sight. That morning, Marcus approached her with 2 coffees in hand. He smiled, calm as ever, like the night before hadn't been riddled with red flags. You okay? He asked, handing her the cup she always liked, black with a splash of oat milk. You seem off. Emily hesitated before answering. She wasn't sure how much she could trust him. He had always seemed loyal, yes, but lately there were inconsistencies. He knew things he shouldn't. He offered help without ever being asked. And when she brought up Andrew's sudden disappearance, his face twitched just slightly. Most people would have shown confusion, even concern. But Marcus? He nodded like he expected it. You really think he was here? Marcus asked casually, sipping his coffee. I know he was, Emily replied, watching his eyes for any flicker of dishonesty. Then maybe someone doesn't want him to be. That sentence sat between them like a loaded gun. Marcus didn't elaborate. He just gave her a long look and walked away. And in that moment, Emily realized that this wasn't about closure anymore. It was about survival. Later that day, Emily went to the hospital's IT department, pretending she needed assistance with her login history. The technician, an older guy named Rob who'd worked there since before electronic records were even standard, gave her a knowing look. You looking for a patient file that vanished? He asked, half smirking. Emily paused. Why would you say that? Rob leaned in and lowered his voice. You're not the first one to come down here with that kind of problem. Files go missing sometimes. Usually when someone up top wants them to. She asked him if there was any way to trace deleted entries. He hesitated, then told her, only if you know exactly what you're looking for and who tried to erase it. She left with more questions than answers, but she did leave with one crucial lead. Rob slipped her a slip of paper before she walked out. It had a name, Dr. Eliza Bennett. Eliza had been on call during Andrew's supposed admittance, but Emily hadn't seen her in over a week. According to the schedule, Eliza had taken sudden leave the morning after Andrew's visit. No explanation. No warning. Emily tried to call her, voicemail. She sent a text, no response. A creeping suspicion formed in her gut. Was Dr. Bennett the only one who could confirm Andrew's presence? And if so, was she being silenced? That night, Emily drove to Eliza's apartment. She hadn't planned to, but the pull was too strong to ignore. The building was quiet, the kind of place where neighbors kept to themselves and rarely noticed anything unless it spilled out into the hallway. She rang the buzzer. No answer. But as she turned to leave, a young girl, maybe 9 or 10, came down the stairs holding a tablet. She looked at Emily and said, Are you here to see Dr. Bennett? Yes, Emily replied, her voice low. Do you know if she's home? The girl nodded. She's been home all week. But she doesn't answer the door anymore. My mom says she's sick. She cries a lot at night. Emily froze. Did something happen? The girl looked around, then leaned in like she was telling a secret. A man came to visit her a few nights ago. After that, she stopped coming outside. I think he scared her. Did you see what he looked like? She nodded. He wore a hoodie and had something wrapped on his hand. My mom told me not to talk about it. Emily's stomach dropped. The same man from the hospital waiting room. She thanked the girl, gave her a warm smile, and turned back toward her car. As she reached for the door handle, her phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. Stop digging. People get hurt when they don't let go. Emily stared at the screen, the weight of it hitting her all at once. Someone was watching her, tracking her, controlling the narrative. She felt the invisible net tightening around her, and yet, a spark ignited inside. Fear, yes, but also determination. Someone wanted her to stop, which meant she was getting close. But just as she unlocked her car and slid into the driver's seat, something caught her eye on the passenger side. A white envelope. No postage. No markings. Just her name. Inside was a single photo, grainy, black and white. It showed Andrew, standing beside a man she didn't recognize. The second man had his arm around Andrew's shoulder and Emily's necklace in his hand. She hadn't worn that necklace in months. Trapped in the same suffocating storm of threats and deception, each receiving cryptic warnings that hinted at a network of secrets more extensive and dangerous than she had ever imagined. This new development shattered any illusions of safety and made her question every relationship she had. If those closest to her were being targeted, then the circle of trust was shrinking fast, leaving her isolated in a world where even allies might be enemies in disguise. As she tried to process this, a new piece of evidence surfaced, a document that seemed to contradict everything she had believed about the past. The paper was old, its edges worn and stained, yet its contents held a revelation that upended the entire narrative. It suggested that the betrayal she thought was recent was actually rooted in something far more sinister, something planned long ago and carefully hidden beneath layers of lies. This contradiction threw her into turmoil, forcing her to question the reliability of her memories, the honesty of those around her, and even the motives driving her own instincts. What had started as a painful breakup now felt like a sprawling conspiracy, with stakes higher than she could have imagined. Adding to the tension was the growing suspicion that the new ally, once a beacon of hope, might be involved in this darker plot. Small inconsistencies in their story became glaring red flags, and subtle hints that once seemed innocent now appeared as deliberate manipulations. Every conversation, every gesture, became a potential clue or a trap, blurring the line between friend and foe. The uncertainty gnawed at her sanity, making every decision a high-risk gamble and every moment a test of survival. In this labyrinth of deceit, trust was the most dangerous gamble of all, and she had no idea who was playing which side. The stakes kept rising as more people surfaced with hidden agendas and buried secrets, each complicating the story and deepening the mystery. Friends turned into suspects, past grievances resurfaced with new significance, and the truth became more elusive with every passing day. The emotional weight of betrayal, combined with the growing threat of exposure and danger, created an atmosphere so thick with tension it was almost suffocating. You could feel it in every word, every look, and every unanswered question. This wasn't just a story about love lost. It was a high-stakes game of survival where every move mattered, and the cost of a single mistake could be devastating. And just as the pressure reached a breaking point, a final, shocking twist emerged, a revelation that shattered the fragile balance and left her, and you, reeling. The person she least suspected was not only aware of the threats, but might have been orchestrating them from the shadows, pulling strings and setting traps with a cold, calculated precision. The truth wasn't just hidden, it was weaponized, and the closer she got to uncovering it, the more dangerous the game became. This was no longer just about uncovering a betrayal, it was about navigating a minefield of secrets where every revelation brought her closer to a truth that could change everything, or destroy her completely. The mystery deepened, the stakes soared, and the only certainty left was that the story was far from over. What happens next will challenge every assumption and keep you glued to the screen, because in this twisted tale, everyone has something to hide, and the real truth is still waiting in the shadows, ready to explode when you least expect it. The moment everything shifted, she couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling crawling under her skin, that unmistakable sensation that someone was watching her every move. It started with small things at first, the flicker of a shadow just beyond her window, the faint sound of footsteps behind her when she thought she was alone, a car idling too long near her apartment. But as days passed, those whispers of paranoia became impossible to dismiss as mere imagination. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her chest, each breath shallow, her mind spiraling into a relentless storm of fear and suspicion. It was no longer just about heartbreak or betrayal. This was something darker, something that threatened not only her peace of mind but her very safety. Suddenly, every familiar face took on a new edge, every friendly word sounded like a veiled threat, and every moment outside her home became a test of nerves. The person she once was, confident and sure, was slipping away, replaced by someone clutching desperately to fragments of trust and sanity. Then, as if the universe itself wanted to drive home the urgency, Someone close to her vanished without a trace. A friend who had stood by her through thick and thin. Someone who had shared in her secrets and fears. One day they were there, offering comfort and solidarity, and the next, gone, leaving behind a haunting silence and a trail of unanswered questions. The disappearance wasn't just a cruel twist of fate. It was a scream from the darkness, a brutal reminder that the danger lurking around her was real and closing in fast. Her heart pounded not just from grief, but from the terror of what it meant. If someone so close could vanish, then she was next, and the clock was ticking. The lines between ally and threat blurred beyond recognition, and the growing void left by her friend's absence echoed in every shadow, reminding her that nothing in this nightmare was as it seemed. The threats escalated, no longer hidden in cryptic messages or veiled warnings, but delivered with brutal clarity. A note slipped under her door late one night, the words chillingly direct. "Stop now, or you won't get a second chance." It wasn't a suggestion anymore, it was a promise. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the menace was unmistakable, dragging her into a world where every decision felt like a matter of life or death. As she stared at those words, the room seemed to close in around her, the walls whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. The questions multiplied: who wanted her silenced, and why? How deep did the betrayal run? Could she trust anyone when even the people who promised to protect her were shadowed in doubt? In the quiet moments, when the adrenaline faded and her mind was left alone with its fears, the paranoia grew into a constant companion. Every unexpected phone ring, every knock at the door, every glance from a stranger sent waves of panic crashing through her. Sleep became elusive, replaced by restless nights haunted by nightmares that felt too real. Her thoughts twisted into darker and darker places. What if the love she gave everything to was a lie from the start? What if the best friend, the trusted confidant, was part of a plan she couldn't even begin to understand? What if she was already trapped in a web with no way out? These questions clawed at her, raw and relentless, fueling a desperate need to uncover the truth before it consumed her completely. But just as she felt herself teetering on the edge of despair, the story took a final, brutal turn. A chilling phone call, a voice she recognized but didn't expect, dropped a cryptic line that sent her heart into her throat. "You don't know who you're dealing with. Back off before it's too late." That one sentence shattered what little peace she had left and turned the nightmare into something far more dangerous and personal. The stakes were no longer about lost love or shattered friendships. They were about survival. The darkness wasn't just closing in, it was reaching out, and she had no choice but to fight or disappear into the shadows forever. The mystery deepens, and the danger grows. What happens next will challenge everything you thought you knew and leave you questioning who to trust in a world where betrayal wears many faces and the truth hides in the darkest corners. The answers are coming, but at a cost far greater than anyone could have imagined. Just when it felt like the pieces were finally coming together, shattering the suffocating grip of uncertainty, the entire story twisted in a way no one could have anticipated, especially not her. The revelation came not from an enemy lurking in the shadows or a distant, hidden adversary, but from the one person she had trusted above all others, the person she thought had her back through every nightmare and every heartbreak. This confidant, the very friend who had stood by her side during the darkest moments and had vanished so mysteriously, returned, but not with comfort or answers. Instead, they arrived bearing a secret that shattered the entire foundation of what she believed to be true. It wasn't just a confession or a betrayal, it was a revelation that flipped the narrative upside down and made her question every feeling, every memory, and every relationship she had clung to so desperately. The mystery was never what it seemed. What she had thought was a straightforward story of love, betrayal, and danger was actually a carefully constructed illusion, a maze designed to keep her, and now you, chasing ghosts. The hidden clue that unlocked this shocking truth had been overlooked from the very beginning, a small detail buried so deep in the chaos that no one had noticed it. It was a message, a subtle piece of information disguised in a casual conversation, something so natural it slipped past suspicion until it was too late. That clue revealed not just the who, but the why, a motive so unexpected, so personal. It cut deeper than any betrayal could. The person who left her, who tore apart her life by choosing her best friend, was not acting alone or out of simple malice. Instead, there was a darker agenda at play, something that connected to a secret past event she had no memory of, a buried truth that someone had gone to great lengths to hide. The layers peeled back to expose a tangled web of manipulation that made her realize she had been a pawn in a game much bigger than herself, one where trust was currency and deception the ultimate weapon. This major plot twist wasn't just a shock. It rewrote the entire story's rules and forced everyone watching to rethink everything they had assumed. The people she feared were not always enemies, and those she trusted might be hiding agendas that blurred the line between friend and foe. Suddenly, allies turned suspicious, motives became murky, and the truth seemed to dance just out of reach, slipping through fingers desperate to grasp it. The emotional stakes skyrocketed because this wasn't just about uncovering who left her or why. It was about facing a reality where nothing was what it appeared to be, where love and loyalty were entangled in a dangerous game of secrets and lies. As this truth settled, it left her and the audience with a profound sense of disorientation. The story that had begun as a painful personal betrayal evolved into a high-stakes mystery full of shadows, hidden agendas, and unexpected players who might be pulling the strings. Every interaction, every conversation from now on would carry the weight of suspicion, and every revelation would challenge the fragile trust that remained. The chilling realization dawned that the danger wasn't just around the corner. It was woven into the very fabric of her life, and escaping it would mean unraveling not just the mystery, but the identity she thought she knew. And so, just as the pieces started to fall into a new pattern, the question lingers: how deep does this deception go, and what will she or you do when the truth is more devastating than anyone ever imagined? The answers are buried beneath layers of lies, waiting for those brave enough to keep searching in a story where every twist raises the stakes higher, and every step closer to the truth brings a new shadow into the light. Now, standing at the edge of a truth more tangled and perilous than she ever imagined, she faced choices that no one should ever have to make, decisions that ripped her apart from the inside and pushed her to the very limits of her endurance. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to protect herself from the darkness closing in, but the hunger for answers, for justice, was a flame she couldn't extinguish. The ultimatum came wrapped in cold certainty: keep digging and risk everything, her safety, her peace, even her life, or bury the truth forever and live with the crushing weight of betrayal and unanswered questions. It wasn't just a crossroads. It was a battlefield where the stakes were terrifyingly real, and the only way forward was through fire. The raw emotional weight of this decision pulled at her in every direction, the pain of choosing between survival and truth clawing at her heart with ruthless intensity. The conflict wasn't just external. It tore through her relationships like a storm, threatening to destroy the fragile bonds left standing. She was forced to confront the person she had once trusted implicitly, the one whose shocking revelation had upended everything. This confrontation wasn't a simple reckoning. It was an emotional war, fraught with accusations, confessions, and raw vulnerability. The person across from her was no longer just a suspect or a betrayer, but a mirror reflecting her own pain, confusion, and shattered trust. Their exchange was a collision of two souls caught in a web of lies and desperation, where every word could either sever the last thread of connection or open the door to an even darker truth. The tension between them crackled like electricity, making every moment feel unbearable yet impossible to look away from. The audience feels this struggle too, pulled deep into the emotional heart of a story where loyalty is fragile and love can be the sharpest weapon. Amidst this turmoil, the shadow of fear loomed larger than ever. Threats grew bolder, warnings more direct, and the line between friend and foe blurred beyond recognition. Her world was shrinking, every safe place disappearing like smoke through her fingers. Paranoia wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a constant companion whispering that anyone, even those closest, could be the enemy. The impossible choice loomed heavier as she realized that seeking the truth might mean losing everything she held dear: her relationships, her safety, her very identity. Yet, letting go of that search felt like surrendering to the darkness, a fate she couldn't accept no matter the cost. The emotional storm inside her raged: hope and despair, courage and fear, each battling for dominance as the story hurtled forward into the unknown. The audience is pulled deeper into this intense emotional journey, feeling every heartbeat, every doubt, every desperate plea for answers that remain just out of reach. This isn't just a mystery to solve. It's a raw, human struggle against overwhelming odds where the cost of truth might be more than anyone is willing to pay. And just when it seems like she's about to make a choice, the ground shifts beneath her once again, threatening to pull her and everyone watching into a new, even more dangerous chapter where the impossible becomes inevitable and the shadows hold secrets darker than ever before. Just when she thought she was finally close to unraveling the truth, the shocking reality hit her like a freight train. The conspiracy was far bigger, more tangled, and more ruthless than she could have ever imagined. It wasn't just about her, or the betrayal between two people she once trusted. No, this was a sprawling web of deception that stretched into corners of her life she hadn't even dared to suspect. Faces she'd smiled at, hands she'd shaken, voices she'd trusted whispered lies that now echoed with sinister purpose. The stakes exploded beyond personal heartbreak into something far more dangerous, and suddenly every step she took felt like walking through a minefield where one wrong move could mean everything crumbling down. The urgency pressed down on her chest as she realized she wasn't just fighting for answers anymore. She was fighting for her very survival in a game played by people who'd stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. The feeling of betrayal twisted deeper when someone she had leaned on, someone who had promised to be her anchor in this storm, revealed a hidden agenda that changed everything. This person wasn't just a bystander or a reluctant participant. They were an active player, someone working against her from within her circle, pulling strings and manipulating events to keep her off balance. It was the kind of betrayal that didn't just break trust. It shattered the foundation of her entire world and made her question every moment shared, every word exchanged. The emotional weight of this blow was almost too much to bear, but there was no time for grief or confusion. Danger was closing in fast, and the pressure to act was suffocating. The pulse of the story sped up, tension coiling tighter with every passing second as threats escalated, and the line between friend and foe blurred into a dangerous gray. This wasn't just a personal nightmare anymore. It was a high-stakes battle where the players were ruthless and the consequences deadly. The conspiracy reached into places she thought were safe: her home, her work, her closest relationships, and the chilling realization set in that anyone could be involved. Anyone could be the next piece in this dangerous puzzle. Every revelation cut deeper. Every hidden truth revealed new layers of manipulation and control designed to keep her trapped in a web she desperately wanted to escape. The pressure mounted as the clock ticked down, the threat no longer distant but immediate, and the fight for the truth became a race against time where the cost of failure was unimaginable. For the audience, the tension is palpable. This isn't just a story about betrayal or heartbreak. It's a desperate fight for survival against forces far bigger and darker than anyone expected. The emotional roller coaster grips tightly, the danger feels real and immediate, and every twist threatens to tip the balance toward disaster. The climax is approaching fast, and with it comes the harrowing question: can she outsmart the conspiracy before it's too late? Or will the shadows swallow her whole, leaving the truth forever lost in the darkness? The moment she had been dreading and desperately preparing for finally arrived, shattering the fragile calm that had briefly settled over her chaotic world. Every secret, every whispered lie, every shadowed glance coalesced into a single, unbearable confrontation that felt like the culmination of every painful step she had taken. The place was unfamiliar but eerily quiet, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the kind of forgotten space where darkness hung thick and every creak echoed like a warning. She knew she was walking into the lion's den, but the truth demanded this final reckoning. no matter the cost. Her heart pounded not just with fear, but with a fierce determination to face whatever, or whoever, was behind the nightmare that had stolen her peace and shattered her trust. She wasn't just seeking answers anymore, she was reclaiming her life from the people who thought they could control it. As she stepped inside, the cold air wrapped around her like a suffocating shroud, and from the shadows emerged the person who had betrayed her most deeply, the puppet master who had orchestrated the web of lies. The intensity in their eyes was chilling, calm yet deadly, as if they had anticipated this moment all along. The confrontation wasn't just verbal, it was a psychological war, a battle of wills where every word was a weapon and every silence a calculated threat. She laid bare the evidence she had painstakingly gathered, pieces of the puzzle that finally fit together to reveal the full horror of their deception. The room seemed to shrink around them as accusations flew, defenses shattered, and truths exploded into the air with the force of a storm. Yet, even in this climactic moment, the villain remained unnervingly composed, twisting the narrative, trying to manipulate her doubt and fear into submission. But she was no longer the person who would be easily broken. With a fierce clarity born of pain and resilience, she fought back, not with anger alone, but with the undeniable power of truth. Every detail she revealed chipped away at the lies, exposing the extent of the conspiracy that had reached into every corner of her life and beyond. The tension reached a boiling point as the psychological duel escalated, neither willing to surrender, both knowing that only one could emerge from the darkness victorious. Just when it seemed like the battle might destroy them both, the unexpected happened. An overlooked piece of evidence, a small but crucial clue, came to light, flipping the entire story on its head. Suddenly, the villain's carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing an even deeper layer of betrayal, one that no one, including the audience, had anticipated. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room, upending everything she thought she knew and raising the stakes to a terrifying new level. This twist wasn't just a plot device.